Today, I have put together a special collection of my favorite videos of how to play the King's Pawn game in a Magnesian style, like how Magnus Carlsen himself plays it. So it is safe to say this is about Carlsen's top secrets in the Italian opening. I noticed that many of you might have missed some of these amazing gems, so I have organized them all in one place for easy access. By the way, I have included the best game you have never seen anywhere on YouTube at the end of this video. So if you want, you can skip towards the end of this video, but you won't understand a thing if you don't watch the first part. And here are the opening moves of the Italian game, where you play bishop c4 on the third move. Black is going to respond with either bishop c5 or knight f6. But first, let's start with knight f6. After this, you want to play pawn to d3. Because black was just attacking your e4 pawn, right? So we want to play d3 first. And from here, you're going to see either bishop c5 or what GM Denise played, bishop e7. Now hold on. It doesn't matter where black develops this dark squad bishop to, either on e7 or on c5. Let me show you our main game plan from here. We want to allow black to take our light squad bishop on c4 so that we take back with our d pawn. Now imagine us having a pawn on c4 and another pawn on e4 well defended, and another pawn on c3, adding an extra support to the b4 and d4 squares. Just imagine having this position on the board, you guys. How can black even penetrate through? This will work like magic, as you are going to see. So anyway, we'll look at Carlsen's game later. Let's just say black plays bishop c5 in this position for the sake of achieving our desirable pawn structure on the center of the board. And for the purpose of this video, we're not going to play the gioco pianissimo with pawn to c3 on move number 4. If you want to be serious with your training, you can get my course. That's how you support this channel. After bishop c5, you can consider to play knight c3, which is the 4 knights variation of the gioco pianissimo. You can see in the Leech's database that the top played move here is pawn to d6, because black just wants to overprotect the e5 pawn. But to allow knight a5 and knight takes c4 to happen, we need to bend the rules, and that's by relocating our queen's knight to the king's side, as we do in the names wish defense. Thus playing knight ce2, which looks ridiculous, to be honest. We want to defend the e pawn like this. By the way, if d5, just take and continue with your main plan of putting your knight on g3, then cast a shot. In this line, black has no time to attack your light squad bishop due to knight takes e5. If that happens, you have knight takes e5, and if knight takes, you can take back with your knight. If the queen pins the knight, you just cast a shot, knowing full and well that they can't do this due to rook a1. Pin on the queen. Or if pawn to f6 first, you even have a nightmare queen h5. Besides, the knight on d5 is also hanging. So never be afraid of moves like knight a5 from today onwards. And that's why after you play knight e2, d5 doesn't still work due to that strategy. What you will see most people doing is playing bishop g4, which can be made by knight g3 or knight a5. They love getting rid of that bishop, and that's the main area of our meet, you guys, to give up this light squad bishop. So you just go knight g3. Of course, Stockfish liked bishop b3, but we don't care about Stockfish. It doesn't exist. It knows nothing about human psychology and emotions. Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop e6. Up to us to go queen d3 or pawn to b3. Bishop check, we have bishop d2. If bishop takes, we have queen takes. And look at the pawn structure that I was talking about, you guys. Again, I'm not saying this is completely winning, but what matters in chess is choosing a game plan that is easier to understand at human level. So it is very easy for most people to understand these pawn structure, as you can see. Managing the center of the board with these two pawns, especially the d5 square. c6 will just create a weakness on d6 after castling. And so black needs to be very careful in these kinds of positions. Like if they cast a shot, we can also do the same. And say after something like bishop g4, wanting to get rid of that, here we can even play knight e1 if we want, or even better queen e3, preparing for h3 next. Once again, see how easy this position is to play. Ideas just keep on flowing naturally, and it's just very easy to understand as compared to the traditional Italian game. If you think about it, let's say g3, now we have h3, bishop e6, pawn to f4, ef, rook takes, I love. attacking the knight, queen e7, defending that. Then the other rook joins the party, you guys. Or even better, we go pawn to e5, attacking that, also forcing this trade to happen. Then queen takes e5. Who is better in this position? Knight d7, queen takes e7. We are up a pawn and we have more central space and open lines everywhere. So this is what I'm talking about, you guys. Oh, there's this. Now we have queen takes. After knight takes, we simply go knight e4. Then after that, we took. We are still up a pawn. Suffice to win the end game. All we need to do from here is to exchange all the big pieces of the board and remain with the pawns for the end game. So once again, if black plays bishop c5, start with knight c3, intending to play the reversed Nimzowitsch defense. Only the keen followers of this channel understand what I'm talking about with the reversed Nimzowitsch defense. Again, pawn to d6 is the top played move, so we go that route. If knight that, we want to play knight g3. If bishop g4 once again, which is the top played move, we can simply go knight g3. Next, we might be interested to go h3. Oh, there's knight d4 in this position, but here comes a golden strategy, you guys, that I covered, I think last week, in the two knights defense with black pieces. Do you know that you can allow this trade to happen in chess? Your coach never told you about this because they were worried about your tactical vision. What they didn't tell you was, as long as you haven't yet castled short, you can open up the king side like that. Say bishop e6 in this position, up to us to change the strategy by placing this bishop on b3 since the job is done, or simply go queen b3 in this position, also attacking the b7 pawn. So this may force your opponent to take. And guess what? Even though queen takes c4 is best in this position, you might even consider taking with your d pawn, controlling the d5 square with two of your center pawns. Just a food for thought, you guys. Next, you have moves like bishop g5, and after protecting your f2 pawn, you might even consider to castle long. Also, the f5 square is now available for your knight. But anyway, once again, we see where this pawn structure can be featured. But anyway, you can just take back with your queen, and if something like castle short, you may now consider to play knight f5. That's a juicy square for your king's knight if you think about it. Pawn to g6 invites rook g1. Who are you? And now you are just playing the reversed Nimzowitsch defense, you guys, like a professional. King h8, bishop h6, look at that. Rook g8, queen takes f7. Who am I? King e8 equals queen takes f6 and checkmate on the next move. Why? Anyway, I just wanted to show you how things may possibly go if you play this correctly. Now, another way you can force these lions is by starting with the four knights game. How? You go pawn to e4, and after e5 you go knight f3, and after knight c6, instead of playing bishop c4, the Italian, which may introduce all kinds of lines, you may consider playing knight c3. This is called the three knights opening, and when you do this, trust me with all your necks, most of your opponents are going to be copying you by playing knight f6. Take a look at what is happening in the Lichess database. Knight f6 is the top played move, also in the Masters database. So this is what people do. I'm not even joking, you guys. So knight f6, and now you can go bishop c4. Most of your opponents are going to copy you by going bishop c5, which is a good thing, right? But don't just castle short too early. Castling is not part of our vocabulary in this opening. After this, now you may go pawn to d3. And just like that, your opponent is going to copy you with d6, because what else do they know? Now this is when you may pause a little bit and remember whatever I've taught you in this four knights variation of the Giocco Pianissimo or the Gioco Pianissimo. You want to transpose the game to the reversed Nimzowitsch defense like this, pep, so that after bishop g4 or knight a5, now you can simply go knight g3. Surprising move, allowing black to take your bishop so that you do this. Again, they can't take your pawn on e4 due to that. And you may consider playing moves like c3 followed by pawn to b4, also supported by pawn to a3, by the way. That's how you expand on the queen side, also ensuring that your center is super strong. Moves like pawn to c6 will just weaken the d6 square for black, so they won't even do that. They play moves like bishop e6 in this position. You can see that's the top played move, after which you can play pawn to to b3. That's what I said. And castle short, or even queen d3 if you don't mind. I find queen d3 also interesting. Point is, after castle short, I can even follow it up with pawn to a4. We are going to see this pawn structure also featured in the Magnus game, you guys. Works like magic. Pawn to a4 is just one of the moves that you can play. Of course, you can castle short or play pawn to h3. If you don't believe me, let's try that. Instead of playing pawn to a4, you can just castle short in this position, securing your king. And after something like queen d7, that's when you go pawn to b3. I love c3 since it prepares for this move. They play pawn to a5 to stop that, obviously. And now we may close the queen side for better for worse with pawn to a4. b3 is also going to come to hold the position on the queen side for good. Let's try h6. We go pawn to h3. Rook a d8 maybe. We go pawn to b3. Now our position on the queen side is well locked and we don't have to worry about anything. From here, let your game plan be as follows. You may need to develop your knight to h4 and put it on f5, like we do in the Nimzowitsch defense. Later in the game, you may also consider the move bishop e3 to challenge that dark squared bishop. Again, this is not the best of openings in this world, but it is something that is easy to understand. If you are looking at this bishop sacrifice, it doesn't work, even though we are not clearly winning as white. First, we can take, and after queen takes, noticing this simple tactic, we first of all go bishop e3. That's why I said we need to challenge that dark squared bishop as early as we can. Now there is no queen takes, right? If knight g4 is played, we can just take. If dc, we go queen e2. Nothing is happening. There's no checkmate on h2. Due to that, from here you can just start looking for ways to trade off all the big pieces and remain with an extra piece. Let's try the most aggressive line, pawn to f5 here. What did I say? You play rook f d1. If pawn takes, first you may consider to oversimplify the game like this, because if pawn takes, you are going to win the game easily. So they have to do this first. And now we have time to take on e4. There's still no checkmate and nothing that black can do. Rook d2 is a tactical move in that if you capture here, you are going to run into this funny checkmate. So use your mind once again. If you want to have many pieces here, you can even try this. Pap, after queen takes, you go knight takes and you're just fine. You put that knight here later on. h5, king h1 or king f1 is okay, but I love rook e1 inviting h4 to come so that I go rook e4. That queen has to go back. Say queen that, we now take on h4. If queen g5, we go knight f3, and after check, we go knight f1. In this position, white is just clearly winning, ladies and gentlemen, despite the fact that black has a queen. Here we can even play something like knight 1 d2 to hold all the pawns. That king h2. There's just nothing black can do. Even if they have a queen, we'll just capture everything. And hey, don't just watch. That's not encouraging at all. You can simply share this video, hit the like button, and subscribe. This is especially for e4 lovers who love playing the Italian opening with bishop c4 on move number 3. And from here, black will either play bishop c5 or knight f6 first, after which I recommended to go pawn to d3 in my previous video. And this is where you are going to see the move bishop c5, after which I recommend you go knight c3, transposing back to the 4 knights variation of the Italian. This is what we're going to be working with. We're going to see something like this in the Magnus game, which I'm here to analyze. But in that game, GM Dennis played bishop e7. We'll look at that later. So I just want to mention something here. When you reach this 4 knights variation position with your 2 knights already out, you need to start thinking of the reversed Nimzowitsch defense, where you relocate your queen's knight to the king side as highlighted on the board. And remember what I said, the other way to reach this exact position of the 4 knights is by starting with the 4 knights opening as follows: e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. And instead of playing bishop c4, you straight away go knight c3, because at least there is 99% chance that your opponent is going to copy you with the move knight f6. This is what people play either on lichess or in over-the-board games. See these 4 knights, right? This is why it's called the 4 knights game. Again, if you play bishop c4, your opponent will most likely copy you with the move bishop c5. This leads to the 4 knights game Italian variation, after which you go pawn to d3, they'll play d6, and now that's when you play knight e2 followed by knight g3. The rule is just never to rush with castle shot. Now let me just go back a little bit. After playing bishop c4 in this position, yes, I do acknowledge that black can just take on e4. The main line is to take back, and after pawn to d5, you want to play bishop d3, so that after pawn takes, you take back on e4 with your bishop, also attacking that. Again, you don't really have to give up your bishop pair like that. You can play pawn to d4, play an open game from here. This could be anyone's game. It's just one of those things where the best tactician goes on to win. Now, once again, after you play bishop c4 and black takes on e4, there's another tricky line you can try in this position, especially in blitz and rapid. Instead of taking back right away, you can play pawn to h4. This is a tricky move, I should admit. Not the greatest you can do, but again, not the worst move in the world. In fact, I think I would give this a try against a 2200, even in a real OTB classical match. Okay, with this h4 move, I'm just asking black to take my knight. Kind of the boarding case risky or reversed Stafford if you think about it. Point is, black has to find queen e7 in this position. Or in other words, black has to be accurate all the time for them to maintain their small advantage. Otherwise, it only takes one logical mistake, which is normal looking like bishop c5 for them to go down so easily. For example, here we can even sacrifice on f7 like this if we want to make them lose their right to castle and then win back some material like that. Or even better, go knight g5 in this specific position. Because we want to take right. Most people do castle short here, but forgetting that we have queen h5. There's checkmate on h7, so they have to play h6, after which we go queen g6. This is just a little trick that most of your opponents are not going to see. They can't take right because that f pawn is pinned to the king. So there's checkmate on h7. If they do take like this, we just take back and checkmate is unavoidable. Yeah, the best try is bishop takes, but you don't even have to take back. Even if you do, you can just play king d1 here and still checkmate is unavoidable. Maybe bishop h4, you have rook takes, and then you go queen h7 checkmate. So remember, that trick works perfectly well in the 4 knights game like this, where you just go bishop c4 intending to play the reversed Nimzo wish, but all of a sudden black takes on e4. You have an option to take on e4, then play bishop d3. That's if you want to play an equal game. I'll be aggressive with a move pawn to h4 to set up that nasty trap which I showed you, because you know after bishop c5 you're going to win your games very easily with knight g5. Even if black plays bishop e7, you can still go queen d5 in this position, intending to checkmate, so they mostly castle short, after which you go knight g5. Simple tactic. Point is, you just want to take on f7. For example, if this, you can just take on f7, you're good. What did I say? It only takes one wrong move, which is normal looking for black to go wrong. Here, black has to let go of their rook, and it'll just be a matter of time before checkmating them. Bishop g5 here is even stronger. If bishop d7, you can play bishop d5, pawn to f3, or even castle long. Just to secure your king, you do that, and you just line up everything. I don't know. Oh, I think I only covered the move pawn to d6 in this line. If pawn to h6 is played, that's even worse, because once again you can go knight takes, attacking the queen, and after rook takes you go queen takes f7 check. After king h8, first you have rook h3, and that is a good strategy. In fact, here I would play rook h3, just trying to do that. If queen f8, I'll play queen h5. The idea is to give up my bishop someday, but I have that. Oh, pawn to d5 might be played here, but I have rook f3, counter-attacking the queen, and after something like queen g8, protecting that, I'll play rook g3 in this position so that I sacrifice my bishop on h6 like this. Checkmate is coming very soon. If that, there is rook takes with check, and after that, first you start with queen check, so that you capture this pawn with tempo before castling long, involve your other pieces into the game. This is a potential queen. Anyway, so that's how you continue to play if black takes on e4 prematurely. When they expect you to play an equal boring game, you can surprise them with h4 instead. Now we look at Magnus Carlsen's game where his opponent played bishop e7. So let me show you how that game went. This was a game between Magnus Carlsen versus GM Denis Lazovic. I think it was played on chess.com this year, also presented on Tech YouTube channel. And Magnus opened up with the Italian game like this, and then GM Denis played knight f6, the two knights defense. Then Magnus played pawn to d3 to protect the e4 pawn, which was attacked. Then bishop e7 was played, then castle shot. You know, sometimes Magnus plays simple openings and hopes to fight in the middle game. That's where he outplays most of his opponents, especially in the end game. Now GM Denis played the top played move in this position, which is castling short. But just to see what would happen if pawn to d5 was played, I believe Magnus was just going to take, and after knight takes, he was going to play something like rook e1, just, you know, attacking something that is available. I guess this is how the game was going to continue. But anyway, d5 is just a premature move. Denis castle shot as well. And then Magnus followed it up with rook e1, indirectly attacking the e5 pawn twice. And in case of pawn to d5, once again, which is why Denis played pawn to d6, no need to play d5. Right, so Carlsen continued with pawn to a4. I guess this is a theoretical move, kind of a prophylactic move also, trying to create a room for the light squad bishop. a3 is also playable. Bishop e6 was played, but then this is when Magnus showed us the strategy that we are here for. Most people in this position would rather take on e6 or play bishop a2 or even bishop b3, but Magnus played knight bd2 in this position and tricked his opponent like this, taking back with a pawn, you guys. So the whole idea was to control the d5 square with his two pawns. See what I'm talking about? And this was the main area of my meat, even in my yesterday's video. Playing with your pawns. Next, you have moves like b3 and c3 to solidify everything. And this knight will later on sit on g3 like that, as we do in the reversed names of wish defense or the gioco pianissimo. h3 will be played sooner or later. Anyway, the game proceeded as follows. Denis played a5, and then Magnus played knight f1, b6, knight e3 instead of knight g3. This is another idea. So where does this knight go? The final destination of that queen's knight is the a5 square, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes it can also be placed on d5. Now, at this point, it looks like the pawn on e4 is a free pawn, but nope. This is how grandmasters play their games. If this happened, Magnus was going to play queen d5 and black was going to lose a knight. That's why knight takes wasn't possible. It wasn't even played. Black played knight back to b8, and then Magnus played knight f5. Remember what I said? From the b1 square, that knight went to d2, f1, e3, then finally to f5. That's how that knight moves. Sometimes you can put it on g3, then it goes to f5, like a snake. Anyway, knight bd7 was played, and then look at that, you guys. This is a very brilliant idea by Magnus Carlsen. He is teaching us how to play the Italian like a pro. So after that move, g6, Magnus played knight h6. Even though Stockfish likes knight g5 in this position, I don't understand Stockfish. Why is this move interesting though? What if black takes kind of a position of sacrifice? I mean, this is why it's not even advisable to rely heavily on Stockfish, because I mean, it doesn't understand human psychology, and I mean, it's just not clear what strategy white is having here. Anyway, that's why Magnus Carlsen played a more human move in this position. Instead of knight g5, he played knight h6 check. Then king g7 was played, then knight g5 finally. No need to give up a knight. Knight c5, rook h3. Simple chess but very effective. Queen d7, attacking the a pawn I guess. Then Magnus played queen d2 because he understood the assignment. Nothing was going on the queen side. The game is on the king side. So if black takes that poor pawn on a4, they will just allow Magnus to do whatever he wants on the king side. Knight e6 was played by Dennis. Then knight takes. I think this was played out of desperation. Queen takes, then knight f5 check. Now this sacrifice makes a lot of sense because there are moves like queen h6 or queen g5 check, something like that. In fact, GM Dennis took that knight for free. Then queen h6 check was played by Magnus. Still the game was equal. Not very clear what is happening. By the way, if king h8 was played, this was going to lead to a funny checkmate after this, that, check, and mate on h7. That's why GM Dennis played king g8. Nevertheless, Magnus continued with bishop g5, still wanting to get rid of that knight, and out of desperation, I think, black played rook fd8, and then the other rook joined the party. Now see how difficult it is for black to penetrate through the center. They can't even play pawn to d5 for God's sake. Why? Because of these two center pawns that are guarding the d5 square. This is what I'm talking about, you guys. Magnus is just so good, you guys. Pawn to f4. Attacking the rook. Rook c3. Rook d3 was also playable. And finally, knight h5 was played. I mean, what was going to happen if knight takes? There was going to be a mate into, look, queen takes, pap, and mate. That's why GM Dennis in this position played knight h5. Out of desperation, of course, maybe trying to exchange queens. Magnus took that other queen. Although Stockfish finds rook takes h5 interesting in this position. What about queen takes? Same move, same evaluation, but anyway, Magnus chose queen takes e6 because at least this was going to win some material, if not a free knight. Rook d7 was played, bishop h4 was played. Magnus could have played bishop g5 here according to Stockfish. So that after knight g7, then rook h6, and that just pressurizing black on that side of the board. But you know, Magnus Carlsen, being human, played bishop back to h4 and the game went back to equal. But I mean, the most interesting thing in all of this is these two center pawns that are guarding the d5 square. That's what I want you guys to focus on. Knight g7, rook hd3, king f7, c5. Now this is a pawn break, simple pawn break because the rook is not defended. After pawn takes, this is what Magnus took advantage of. Pap, that's king e8, rook b5, staying out of danger. Now the rook was protected. c6, rook b6, attacking that pawn. Rook c8, defending it. Then rook f... Guys, nobody plays the end game as beautiful as Magnus does. But see, if you want to be this good in terms of end games, study end game tactics. Buy books on end games. There are resources on chess.com for end games, even on Lichess, I guess. Study those chess puzzles and mate in 2, mate in 3, end game tactics. That's the only way you can improve your end game skills. Pawn to d5, f3 was played. King f7, rook takes a5. That was just a free pawn. Then bishop f2, knight d6, b3, king e8. Now at this point both players were low on time, so they started blitzing out moves, shuffling pieces like this, pinning the knight to the king. King f6, bishop takes, rook sc5. This is not the main area of my interest. At least you saw how difficult it was for black to fight those two center pawns that I showed you. The game went on like this. I mean, look at this beautiful tactic, check, and that. This is where GM Dennis resigned, because from here it was going to be checkmate in 1, which I would love you guys to find in the comment section. Write your answers below. So what new strategy have we learned in the Italian opening from this video? What did Magnus teach us? Well, it is this concept where we give up the light squad bishop on c4 by taking with our pawn. So it's not every time you should be retreating your bishop all the way back. Sometimes you can just let it go on this same square, or in other words, you can strategically replace your light squared bishop with your c pawn. It doesn't matter how you do it, just find a way to achieve that. And this works pretty much well in the bishop e7 line, as we saw. My way of achieving that center pawn structure is by transposing to the 4 knights game like this. Say after bishop c5, that's when I go knight c3, start thinking of the names of wish reversed, d6, knight e2, and after knight a5, that's when I play knight g3. This is how I do it. Once again, that same pawn structure controlling the d5. If you think about it, from here I'm only thinking of moves like b3, a4, and c3. If bishop that, I have b3. If bishop b4 check, I have bishop d2, bishop takes, queen takes, castle short, bishop that, queen e3, and the rest becomes history. It is just simple for me to understand this kind of structure. So what I'm going to do is to try my new reverse names a wish with white pieces against any random player on leeches. And hey, remember to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Okay, so here I have white pieces. Let's see what my opponent is going to play. e4, e5, the king's pawn game. So I'm now thinking, which piece am I going to give up? Let's see. Let's do this first. And okay, you see what I told you in my yesterday's video? Whenever you play the 3 knights opening, most people respond with the 4 knights. This is what we call the 4 knights game, when the knights are, full of them. So at this point, I'm only thinking of transposing back to the reversed names of wish defense, which I showed you in my previous video. But first I want to develop my light squared bishop out. Of course, black has an option to take on e4, and I was very prepared. If that happened, what I was going to do was to play pawn to h4, allowing them to take my knight. This was going to be some kind of the reversed Stafford gambit. So first, my opponent just played bishop c5. This is also a move, so simply go pawn to d3. So next, I intend to play knight e2 and knight g3. By the way, I am going to welcome the move knight f5, giving up my light squared bishop so that I could take back, I would take back with my d pawn. So let's do that. I'll be happy to see knight a5. I want to give up my light squared bishop. Let's go f4. So I'm just stopping pawn to b5. Also, I'm ready to give up my light squared bishop. Now my names of wish plan is successful. Let's go pawn to h3. Taking that, I'll take back with a queen. Black can't play bishop h5. Okay, so there we've seen that move. I can just do this. Guess we're going to see pawn to b5 now, but I don't really care about this anymore. Yes, I can just take. If pawn takes, I have that. Let's say queen takes. Now I can, you know what? I think let me just do this. This also kind of, invites knight takes. By allowing that move, I'm just getting rid of the knight indirectly. So let me do this, taking back with my bishop. I have moves like c3. In fact, I'll play pawn to c3 to chase that knight away from my territory. Yeah, let me do this first. Go back. Then I'll play queen e2. Simple chess once again. You can see with queen e2, I'm just saying no to the possible queen trade. Now pawn takes. You can see how fixed my position is, you guys. I love it so far. And I have a new square for my king's knight. I can attack that queen if I want. In fact, let's do that. Just sending it back to the kingdom of Babylon. Or maybe I should have played, oh wait a second, I can still play this move if I want, but why not putting my king to safety first? If g6, I have check. Also, I should consider playing pawn to b4 now. I think pawn to b4 is fantastic, followed by this move. Yeah, so let's develop the dark square bishop now. Don't know where that queen is going to run to. Okay, so now thinking of what to do next. Why not getting rid of this knight? It's so annoying. Okay, my thing is under attack. I need to do something about this. Maybe pawn to f3 will solve this issue. Pawn to f3. By the way, this is a 3+2 casual blitz match. I don't understand this move, but I can just check, I guess. Knights are so powerful. I think the knight was just super active on that square, so it makes sense for me to do that. Now I think let me do this. Oh, there's a check. So let's run away from that check first. Let's do this. If g3, I have knight d4 and bishop c6. Also, queen c4 is coming, which is the main reason why I have played king h1. Might win the rook on a8. This is how you're supposed to be thinking in chess, you guys. After this video, I'm going to include a short tutorial lesson on this line, which I also covered in my previous video. So let's take that. You see what I said? And I can do this if I want, but at this point, all I'm thinking about is simplifying the game, oversimplifying the game. So I'm going to ask for a queen trade since since I'm up an exchange. Yes, this will be, I think this is okay. I think this is fine. I'm going to lose this pawn, but I don't really care. I just want to finish off my opponent very quickly. Because I'm going to lose the c3 pawn. I mean, I'm up an exchange, so I just want to play this. Okay, my opponent just hung something here. Check. Ah, damn it. So this is check. I'm also going to win this. So my opponent just blundered. Now I can take this for free. Maybe they want to win on time, since my network is bad today, but that won't happen. So let's do that. What can I do next? I think let's go after that queen. So all I need is to get rid of the queen. This is check. Let's attack the queen again. Let's do that. Let's do this. Want to give a check? Or maybe I should have taken the knight. Why not? Let's take the knight. At this point, we might even win like this, win the queen. And just oversimplifying the game, I don't need to prove anything. And maybe let's start going. I'll just checkmate my opponent with my pawn. Let's do that. There's nothing my opponent can do here. They can't even move their queen. I don't know why they are not resigning. Okay, my opponent just left the game. I mean, this queen was just trapped. So claim victory before I lose on time, because my network is tripping today. So anyway, the middle game didn't go as I intended it to go. It didn't go as planned. I didn't like that, but I guess you still got the idea in the opening stage. This is how you play the reversed names a wish, as I'm calling it for now, but I mean, it's just a normal Italian game, gioco pianissimo. But the whole reason why I'm calling it the reversed names a wish is due to this plan of relocating the queen's knight to the king's side, followed by a pawn to h3. By the way, I was expecting or waiting for my opponent to play knight a5 because I was ready to give up the light square bishop. You heard me mentioning that over and over in the video, but anyway, it is what it is. Okay, let's try this one more time. I'm going to start with the 4 knights game because I'm pretty much sure my opponent is going to copy me. You can see. So now let's go bishop c4. If knight takes, I'll go pawn to h4. Yep, that's what I said in my tutorial video. Of course, the correct line, or rather the main line in this position, is to take with the knight. Knight takes e4, then after pawn to d5, you just go bishop d3, and after pawn takes, you take with your bishop on e4. So it is your last square bishop that you want to place on e4 to target that knight. And at best, you want to keep your bishop pair. Probably put it on d5. So I want to play a tricky line that I'm sure my opponent won't be familiar with. It involves the move pawn to h4. So I'm giving up my c knight. There's a possibility black can go back like that. So the idea for them is to play pawn to d5. Now, I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is to interfere by playing knight d5. From here, you want to play an open game. So this is still a gambit. If I want to win this pawn, by the way, I can just take the knight. Okay? Just to make it clear, I can play bishop takes and take the knight, get back my knight. Of course, there is that, but I mean, it's just too risky for them to do that. So what I'm going to do is to open up the board like this. I don't have to give up my last squad bishop. Don't do that. So now that my position is open, it is safe for me to attack this pawn. If I want, I can take back with my h pawn. So look how easy things will be. I'm threatening to checkmate. Even if they take, I have h takes g5. Guys, this is exactly what I was talking about. I mean, you have all these options. People don't play accurate chess. Trust me. So there's a saying in chess that everyone is a good attacker, but not everyone is a good defender. So for somebody to defend against this h4 line, they have to be very accurate all the way up to the end. This is checkmate, literally. So the best I can do here is to put my king on f1, I guess. Yep, there's no any meaningful continuation. Okay, that's a good try. But how about I just play this move and do that? But anyway, let's do this. The idea is to take. By the way, if pawn to g6, I have queen takes, and that'll be checkmate on the next move. So my opponent wants to checkmate, and if you think about it, this kind of looks like the Caro-Kann. So bishop takes, I have bishop takes in this position. If that, I have this, I guess, checkmate. Let me see if this is going to be checkmate. This again, bap, check, checkmate. No, it's not going to be checkmate, but I'm going to win the queen. So let's try this. Oh, wait a second. Takes, queen takes, that check. Okay, at least I'm going to win the queen. So it's just a matter of being fast. From here, I can promote another queen. So obviously I'm going to win a queen in this position, unless my opponent wants to flag me or something like that, but I'll take that because I was just too slow. So let's try to be fast from here. Maybe I'm going to sacrifice my bishop now. Let's do this. Yep. So maybe the idea is to give a check and do it that way. Give this check. Okay, this is checkmate in 2. Pap and mate. Ah, damn it! So I played my tricky line, my tricky 4 knights line, and I was able to defeat my opponent in 20 moves. Who am I? And what do I do for a living? Why? And that's all for today, you guys. Let me know which episode you liked the most in the comment section down below. And if at all you would love to see more of these kinds of content where I compile my favorite videos in one collection, of course, to make it easier for you guys, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye bye.